The Star Wars universe has expanded in countless ways over the years, blending legends and canon to create new and exciting stories. But with the current state of Star Wars, some of the most beloved characters from the old expanded universe still haven't made their way into the official timeline. Characters such as Mara Jade, Darth Revan, and others could add depth and complexity to the Mandoverse and even reshape the post-Rise of Skywalker era. In this video, I'm going to explore how some of these legend icons could be reintroduced, and I'm going to give you my opinion on the top 3 that I think can make a major impact in different storylines and what their presence can mean for the future of Star Wars. Number 3, Prince Caesar. Now I can see him being introduced into the Mandoverse. So why exactly does this character fit from Legends? Well, the Black Sun Crime Syndicate has been name dropped in the Clone Wars, and the underworld is a growing part of the Mandoverse. The Book of Boba Fett has hinted at this. Also, what we have been hearing about other projects that are currently being developed over at Lucasfilm. Caesar, the fallen crime lord from the shadows of the Empire, will be a phenomenal antagonist, filling the power vacuum left by Jabba the Hutt and challenging figures like Thrawn, Gideon's remnants, and even the Mandalorians. He could act as a foil to Thrawn, either as an uneasy ally or a rival in the Shadow War for control of the galaxy. His cold, calculating presence would bring the Star Wars underworld to the forefront in a way we have never really seen in live action. I think having two different types of villains not necessarily working together would definitely give us a different type of storyline moving forward. Number 2, Darth Krayt. Now he would fit more in a post-Rise of Skywalker timeline. Formerly known as Asherat Het, he was a Jedi during the Clone Wars who then later became a Sith Lord. In Star Wars Legacy, a Legends comic set around 137 ABY, Darth Krayt established the One Sith, a new Sith Order that abandoned the traditional rule of 2 in favor of a unified Sith hierarchy. Unlike the Sith seen in the movies, who followed Darth Bane's rule of 2, one master, one apprentice, the One Sith operated more like an army, all serving under a single Dark Lord. Krayt believed that the old Sith way led to self-destruction. Instead of Sith constantly betraying their masters for power, he enforced strict loyalty to one ruler, himself. Under his leadership, hundreds of Sith worked together to overthrow the new galactic empire and take control of the galaxy. This order was more cult-like, with all members serving Krayt's will, much like Palpatine's Sith Eternal seen in The Rise of Skywalker. While the One Sith doesn't exist in Disney's official timeline yet, the idea of a large-scale Sith organization could be introduced post-Rise of Skywalker, possibly influencing future villains. A character like Darth Krayt could emerge to rebuild the Sith in a way we have never seen before. With Rey's Jedi Order needing a real challenge, introducing Krayt as a lingering Sith threat would be a fantastic way to evolve post The Rise of Skywalker. Instead of a single Sith apprentice like Kylo, Krayt could introduce the One Sith, operating in secrecy and waiting for their moment to strike. His backstory as a Tusken-raised Jedi turned Sith during the Empire's rule would add a very interesting layer of history that ties into existing lore. Number 1, Mara Jade. Now Mara Jade is one of the most famous expanded universe characters, if not the most famous. This is a character that a lot of people don't want to see come into canon because they're afraid that Disney will ruin the character. I am not without hesitation, but I believe that if done correctly, it would not only make The Last Jedi a better movie, I believe that we could still have a good story, although it would not be 100% like the expanded universe's story. Now in Legends, we know that Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker end up having a romantic relationship, They get married, and they have one child, Ben Skywalker, named after Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, in current lore, we know that Ben Solo kind of took place of this character. So having Mara Jade fit into the current timeline, knowing where we are headed with the sequel trilogy, there are definitely some changes that will need to be made. So how exactly would she fit in? Well, Mara Jade was the Emperor's hand, a highly trained Force-sensitive assassin who carried out secret missions for Palpatine. Now again, in Legends, after the Emperor's death, she initially worked with the remnants of the Empire before eventually turning away from the dark side and becoming a Jedi. How can she be introduced into the Mandoverse? Mara could start out as a high-ranking Imperial agent still carrying out Palpatine's secret orders, even after his supposed death. This could tie into the cloning experiments on Exegol and the mysterious connections between Thrawn, Project Necromancer, and the Emperor's contingency plan. Now, one of the intriguing parts of all of this is that this could be something that she decided to just keep to herself, and she never ends up actually telling Luke. Now, this would have to be a thought-out, huge plot point that maybe at some point down the road we end up finding out, but it could be something that maybe creates some type of turmoil in the relationship. We could first see her as an enforcer working with Thrawn, perhaps hunting down Luke, Ahsoka, or other Force users to prevent them from interfering with the Imperial Remnant's plans. Over time, Mara might start questioning her orders, especially if she uncovers the full extent of Palpatine's manipulation, like the Sith Internals plans on Exegol. Now, here are some possible changes from Legends. Again, she did fall in love with Luke, and she eventually became a Jedi. But since Luke's story in canon seems different, her arc could be rewritten so that she's either a tragic anti-hero, or perhaps even a key player in Thrawn's war, operating independently. So what does this mean for the overall arching story impact with her and Luke Skywalker? Mara could bring a strong Force-sensitive antagonist into the Mandoverse that isn't just Sith or Jedi. Her inclusion would also show more of Palpatine's secret operations, building up the bridge between the Mandalorian era and the sequel trilogy. Now, if you wanted to keep it more along the lines of Legends, there is another way to go. We can also have her story starting as an elite operative in the Imperial Remnant, still following Palpatine's last orders, even after his death. Remember, she's a skilled assassin, perhaps hunting Jedi like Ahsoka, or Force-sensitive individuals who could threaten the Empire's return. She crosses paths with Luke Skywalker, possibly during his search for Jedi artifacts or while protecting Force-sensitive children from the Imperial remnants. Their rivalry turns into a reluctant alliance as Mara is forced to work with Luke against a greater enemy. Could be Thrawn or another hidden Imperial faction. During this journey, she begins questioning the Empire's narrative and Palpatine's manipulation. After the final confrontation with this major threat, Mara severs her ties with the Empire, but struggles with her past. Luke sees the good in her and offers to train her in the ways of the Force, not to erase her past, but to help her forge a new one. Over time, she not only embraces the light, but also falls in love with Luke. They marry in secret as Luke is still focused on rebuilding the Jedi Order. Luke and Mara have trained many students, including Ben Solo. Mara plays a key role in helping Luke shape this new Jedi Order. However, she remains more pragmatic than Luke, warning him about the dangers of blindly following old Jedi traditions. When Snoke, or Palpatine's influence, begins corrupting Ben Solo, Mara senses something is wrong and then tries to intervene. She either dies protecting the Jedi students from the Temple Massacre or is killed by Ben himself, further pushing him toward the dark side. Now, I think if this were to happen, this would definitely have to be after Luke actually ignites his lightsaber in the attempt to possibly strike down his nephew. Now, although Luke decides not to do this, this could solidify Ben Solo as his full turn to evil after he does end up killing Mara Jade. Now, at this point in the timeline, I don't think that Ben Solo would be skillful enough to kill Mara Jade in an actual duel. So I think it would be possible that he would actually use some of what Luke had trained him and do it more in a sneaky type way. So what type of impact on The Last Jedi would this all have? Luke's isolation would become more personal, and I think it would actually make more sense. Instead of losing only his students, his new order, he would also have lost Mara, making his guilt and self-imposed exile even deeper. If Ben killed Mara, Luke's failure wouldn't just be about a lost apprentice, it would also be about losing the love of his life. His retreat to Ahch-To would feel more justified, as both grief and regret would be consuming him. Luke's views on the Jedi would be more nuanced. In The Last Jedi, Luke believes the Jedi's legacy is nothing but failure. If Mara had challenged his strict adherence to Jedi teachings before her death, it would add a weight to his crisis in the film. Instead of just realizing the flaws of the Jedi in exile, he might reflect on how Mara warned him about them before. Rey's training would also have deeper meaning. If Luke had lost Mara and the Jedi Order, his reluctance to train Rey would be about not wanting to repeat the past on a more personal level. Rey's presence might remind him of Mara's presence and resilience, giving him a reason to break free from his guilt. Kylo's arc would even be more tragic. If Ben Solo had killed Mara Jade, his fall would even be more layered. He wouldn't just be carrying the weight of betraying Luke, he'd also bear the burden of killing his own father figure's greatest love. This could make Luke's final lesson to Kylo in The Last Jedi hit even harder, as it would be both a confrontation and emotional reckoning. Now, I don't think this would change the ending of The Last Jedi. Luke would still likely have to have his redemption moment, but with Mara Jade in the story, his return to heroism would be more emotionally charged. Instead of just honoring the Jedi's legacy, he'd also be honoring Mara's belief in him. If Mara Jade were in canon, she would add a more personal reason for Luke's isolation, a deeper emotion connection to Kylo Ren's betrayal, and a much better explanation for Luke's shift in philosophy. Well guys, those are the three characters that I would love to see in canon. Obviously, they need to be done correctly. We need to get somebody who understands the characters to create a story that would fit into current lore. Out of those three, let me know down in the comments, which are you most excited about maybe possibly seeing? Or is there another character in the expanded universe that you would like to see that you think could fit into the current timeline or even after the rise of Skywalker? Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to keep those heads on, and I'll see you guys in the next video.